Bosses. Bosses, 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 bosses. What can I say that others haven't said before? They are the vital challenge to many adventurous games. And while there are a fair share of fights that flat out fail, many gamers alike have brought themselves to have their own list of bosses which they've personally enjoyed throughout the years of gaming. From the defeat methods being creative, unique use of the game's mechanics, enjoyable soundtrack, epic design, and just being plain awesome, in this final countdown of the year, I will conclude Season 1 of MJS Gaming with the 50 bosses I personally find to be the best I've experienced. And let me just say, I'm not the only one that will be talking about favourable battles. Other people will be joining me later down the line on the list. So without further ado, let's get... Actually no, you know what? You deserve a better opening.
Uh-oh.
Me. I am the great mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you. A huge supply of tish comes from my chocolate starfish. How about some scat, you little twat?
The experiment may have the better boss technically, but this is easily the most memorable fight in the game. It's an opera singing pile of crap. Its song is easily one of the funniest moments in gaming history, singing about derogatory terms and caviar, and it throws pieces of itself at you. And to defeat it, you need to throw toilet paper in its mouth while it sings. How do you compete with that?
Now I'm really getting rather mad. You're like a niggly, tickly, shitty little tag nut. When I've knocked you out with all my bab, I'm going to take your head and ram it up my butt.
Your butt.
My butt.
Your butt.
That's right, my butt.
Ugh.
My butt.
Ugh.
My butt.
What can I say about Fawful? He's an amazing villain. He's been in the franchise of Mario and Luigi since the beginning in Superstar Saga. I love him, you love him, he loves him, everybody loves him, everybody loves Fawful. Now I'm here to talk about a great boss fight in a game that he's in. I think you know where this is going. That's right, this audition is for Dark Fawful, and the fight is indeed pristine. Well, let's start with the character, Fawful of Chaos. He gets away with doing such lines as, "The mustard of your doom, I have fury," and so many more. His attacks include, but are not limited to, grabbing onto a light on the ceiling and swinging into you where you can punch him, healing by using his helmet, shooting formations of defense-lowering stars that you have to dodge, and flying up into the air, spawning dark portals, and throwing energy balls that you need to either defend against or punch, or they'll also lower your defense. Next up is that helmet of his. As long as he's wearing it, neither Bowser's Fire Breath or punches will work. Use a special attack to get it off of him, and then inhale it for the bros to fight. It will then proceed to inhale either the item blocks or the special attack blocks that they have, and grab either Mario or Luigi and swing him into the other. Hit him hard enough and he'll eventually spit out those blocks that he took from you, and you'll get him back. Once you've beaten him down enough, he'll turn into this big spider thing, and the fight shall end. What an amazing fight with an amazing character in an amazing game. And let's hope the sequel on the 3DS is also amazing.
Minecraft was a game that literally never ended. Do whatever you want, they said. It will be fun, they said. And fun it was. But fast forward to late 2011, and Minecraft now has an official ending along with the final boss. I would say that the Ender Dragon was an idea well worth thinking, as it was a huge step for Mojang. You fight this beast in the End Dimension, the final world of the game, and that's already a challenge to get to in itself. But once you get to the actual fight, it's a battle to the death. You have Endermen roaming the ground, trying to attack you Slender style, the Ender Dragon swooping in on you, and until you destroy all the beacons on the pillars, the dragon can regenerate its own health. It may be a simple idea, but seriously, when you're fighting alone or in co-op, you're gonna have a lot of fun while tearing this beast to shreds.
Bosses. If done right, they can be really awesome to fight. Bosses also test your skills to make sure that you know everything and how to play the game, so you're not falling behind. Before I start this, let me just say that this could contain spoilers if you haven't fought the boss already, so be warned, and don't say I didn't tell you. But anyways, now with that gone, let's get into the world of... It was really hard to choose which boss from this game, since it has a lot that are really awesome. I could have picked Phantom and Griffin. As awesome as they are, I just had to pick the one and only mighty boss of this game, and his name is Nello Angelo. Now, since you fight this guy 3 times, I picked the third fight, simply because it just stands out. It's so epic. In the beginning of this fight, you see Nello Angelo standing in the front of the room, behind a window. As Dante walks up, he comments on Nello Angelo, saying that he has a lot of guts, but sadly he works for Mundus, which makes him a bad man. Nello Angelo gets mad, and then removes his mask. As he removes his mask, power surges from him, showing that he's powering up, and ready to fight a good fight with Dante. When he takes off his mask, you see his face, with red eyes. He walks towards Dante, and you begin the fight. Now, the one thing I loved about this fight that truly made it stood out was that it was more challenging than the others. He had a lot more attacks that did a ton of damage, and his sword did a lot of damage too. The first attack I noticed that was different was the power surge that he would shoot at you. Now, the second attack that I noticed that was really different was when he would fly in the air and shoot energy blades at you. This attack was kinda hard to dodge in the beginning, but after the fight I was able to manage it. It was tricky, but still fun. The song to this battle was also very good and well composed. It had a lot of energy and made you want to fight even more. I love it so much, and it's still one of my favorite video game songs to this day. Nello Angelo, thank you for being such a great boss. I salute you.
Punch-Out for the Wii is not your average boxing game. Nintendo literally went all out with every single fighter, with attacks, cultures, and stereotyping. And then there's Aaron Ryan. This guy represents Ireland, and that's basically evident in the green shorts, his theme music, and the number 7 shown basically everywhere. Aaron Ryan recovers on the count of 7, he has 7 teeth showing in his smile, he gets KO'd after 7-star punches, and every single one of his stats are related to the number 7. His height is 6.1 feet, and 6 plus 1 equals 7. His KO count is 16, and 1 plus 6 equals 7. But wait, are we talking about boss fights, or are we in math class?
Nobody said there'd be math!
Also, Aaron Ryan is a sadomasochist, so he enjoys dealing damage to himself and others. In Title Defense, he even tries to cheat by bringing in a weapon and flinging himself off the edge of the ring. Even when he gets knocked out, he tries to sneak in damage by flailing his weapon around as he falls. He doesn't even train for Title Defense, he's just ready to get back into the ring and beat the crap out of Little Mac. But he fails anyways. Kefka, the clown who ended the world by only shifting 3 statues. The clown who trolls and promotes his own psychotic actions. As the final boss, he becomes dancing mad with power. See what I did there? He has 4 spectacular phases, and all of them are challenging and strangely symbolic. And as we fight them all, the music playing in the background as you battle is freaking mind-blowing. It's a frantic, insanely composed, yet intimidating theme, perfect for the personality traits of Kefka himself. Now let's talk about the phases. The first phase is his destructive side, and heck, does it look like it's going to break something? Probably its own mind. Fittingly, that transitions onto its second phase, which represents his insanity. You can tell that from the unusual design of the phase. The third phase introduces his god complex. the introduction to a truly intimidating segment. And the final phase is the most well-known and famous. You're literally fighting a god at this point, and the vibrant yellow background suits that concept. Kefka spouts out iconic phrases about life and dreams and hope, and how he'll destroy them all. And you can't let that happen. You need to pwn him so bad that he disintegrates into pure satisfaction. And don't think that I'm making this sound easy. This is no merciful fight. Definitely no time for clowning around.
Alright, look here. I've already got a project coming away discussing about my top 10 favorite boss battles, so for the record, I will not be talking about any of the bosses on that list. So instead, I'll just be talking about a boss that didn't make the cut, but still came close. Let's see it. Alright, you. Let's go! The fight with Bowser Jr. in Super Mario Galaxy truly deserves the title of Boss Battle. Bowser Jr. is so desperate on trying to prevent you from interfering with Bowser's plans, and he won't stop until you're his. Now for the battle itself. Unfortunately for Bowser Jr. haters, you don't get to fight him head on. Instead, you'll pwn him with Koopa shells. Oh yeah. However, Jr. won't let you win so easily. The entire time he's firing cannon shots and bullet bills, and can also summon Kamex all over the place. God dang! There is crap flying everywhere! Once you hit him with 3 Koopa shells, he points the front cannon at point blank range and starts firing fireballs at you, in which you have to avoid all of them. Once you've hit him 2 more times with Koopa shells, he is defeated. Overall, while this boss isn't really that hard, it surely provides a great entertainment factor. And the music. Awesome!
Alex Mercer had a really disappointing fight in Prototype 2. So before that, in the original Prototype, we had the fight with Elizabeth Green. The entire concept was as unpredictable as Elizabeth herself. She turns from a psychomaniacal human being to a giant tumor that shoots out kidney stones and grows a squidgy spine. It is extremely disturbing, but you get to tear down buildings and streets in the process, while launching yourself up into the sky. And easily my favorite move in the Prototype series is to jump. Remember top 15 disturbing bosses? Gygus is one of those bosses. A boss that's so memorable yet just damn scary. The area where you meet up with Gygus is easily represented as a woman's birth canal. If you outline part of Gygus' second form, you'll notice that it looks like a fetus. Yeah, that. Not only am I always disturbed by the ideas portrayed by Gygus, but as a plot point in the story and as a battle, this is one of the best bosses in RPG history. I remember you, Virtual Boy. Gygus is at first fought with Porky as he spits insults at you, and from experience, dealing with him first is crucial because 1. He has 2 powerful attacks, and 2. Porky will stop insulting you faster. So during the next few phases, Gygus' true form is not only revealed, but also unable to be grasped. During the last phase of the battle, Gygus keeps spamming his incomprehensible attacks on your team, while all you can do is keep healing until Paula manages to pray for the party, and this results in other characters praying back, which damages Gygus. Gygus also has a massive load of symbolism apart from the usual abortion theory, which I seem to explain a lot, but as a boss in terms of gameplay, which I seem to have never actually talked about, this is great. It's disturbingly enjoyable, and that's something I wish I could see more of. It's just bound to impress me. Forum Fantasy. I recently just clocked this game fully, and I have to say, it makes me that much more proud to be part of the Chaos Theater. For those who don't know what Forum Fantasy is, it's a satirical RPG style game based off of the Chaos Theater forums, with characters and bosses being actual users, like the Autarch of Flame, Joss Scorcher, Quasar, and of course, Camel Slayer. Camel Slayer has been the man behind all of the chaos in the theatre, and after having fought all his different incarnations, his succubus, his associates, and even death itself, you finally meet up with him in the depths of hell, and it's a full-on battle against the Dark Lord himself. It's obvious he has no mercy against you, but unlike the more challenging super bosses like the God of Chaos or Felix Valora, it's a relatively fair fight. His attacks are powerful, but you can at least endure them for long enough that you can beat him. But what cements Camel Slayer onto this list is how you approach this battle. Before the fight, you can either choose to use the drunk Metroid you found earlier, or to kill it before it turns against you. This decision determines how the fight will play out. If you use the Metroid, you take the easy path through the fight, and the Metroid freaks Camel Slayer out so much that he begins killing himself in order to kill the Metroid. This results, however, in an extra boss where Camel Slayer and the Metroid fuse together and become
the Metroid Lord.
I don't get it either. If you decide not to use the Metroid though, you take the challenging yet rewarding path, and instead of the Metroid possessing the opponent, the Ghost of Chaos does. Forming Chaos at Camel Slayer. This fight is difficult as hell, but damn is it worth it at the end, since not only does Camel Slayer recover, but you also return to the element and fight them all in one go. That is crazy! Or if you want me to make the bad pun, it's crazier. Hehehe. You know, for this segment, I will normally explain why the fight with Mr. Freeze in Batman Arkham Asylum is such a fun battle to play through. But I'm just going to make this another Ice Climbers entry and list as many ice puns as possible. The Mr. Freeze battle is by far the most difficult boss fight in the game, not to mention one of the coolest. Now if you're not prepared for his cold fury, then you and him are just polar opposites. Catch my drift? I'll ask you what you think of the pure concept. Freeze responds to your attacks with certain counter-attacks. He might attack you with electricity or use his jetpack to give you the cold shoulder, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. It isn't even the icing on the cake. Being able to flip over and smash his head down on the rail just sends shivers down my spine every time. Heck, you don't even need good eyesight to see it. From here on, the positives just hail down like an avalanche. There are 12 different ways to deal damage to Freeze, and they range from sneaking up to him, using explosive gel, or using a remote electrical charge. This battle breaks the ice so much, and if you're still asking me, what are you so amazed about? Well, it's just a nice battle overall, but unique enough to isolate itself from the rest of the bosses. Now I see why this fight is talked about so much. What a meltdown. Girahim, one of the quirkiest and most unpredictable villains in not only the Zelda universe but also in gaming. And that's why everyone loves this character. With that dodgy tongue and the amazing fight with him around the end of the game, it is easily one of the most fair but seriously fun-inducing fights I've ever been in, unlike the ones you probably get into at school. It's a 1 versus 1 duel with nothing but swords, swords, and more swords. The game's mechanics are taken advantage of, where you must slice through the unblocked gap that Girahim forms with his arms and slash him off the platform. He then introduces more weapons that keep you on guard throughout the entire fight, forcing you to prepare for what he would pull out next. Platform after platform, you eventually get a chance to stab his chest and he staggers backwards. Despite how arrogant and cocky of a person Girahim is in Skyward Sword, that's a good thing by the way. The battles with him in the game eventually build up to this major event, where you slash and stab him to his doom. Truly epic. And then the Imprison comes along and steals the show. Yeah, I know, Buzzkill, cry some more.
Disgrace to this country!
God of War, a series I recently played this year to see what everyone loved about it. And now I understand why. A franchise about the grounds of Greek mythology, where you get to battle infamous gods such as Poseidon, Zeus, and Ares, each fight getting more and more intense. And because it was my first time playing through the first installment, I was left wondering what the first boss would possibly be. Maybe it would be like, a small, easy opponent, one that would be easy. Nope! The first boss in the franchise is a giant Hydra! You need to defeat all the Hydra's enormous heads by beating them up inside a massive ship, grabbing the faces and just smashing them up against the walls. So much fun to be had killing fucking Hydra heads! When you approach the last 3 Hydra heads on the ship deck, you get to grab those 2 heads on the sides and, well, smash, boy! Then you must pull down the main Hydra head and impale it with the ship's mast. Not only is this fight such a spectacular start to the series, but it was just so fun to just stab a ship's mast through the jaw of a giant Hydra.
Stab ya, mate!
So for this spot, I'm
sorry, but you're gonna have to leave, because you've already done another segment on this list.
Oh, come on!
No, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to leave.
I disagree.
You heard him. I ain't going nowhere.
Okay, fine. Just do the list. Just
Right. Anyway, chorus. First character. You meet Chorus many times on your adventure. You battle him a couple of times, he gives you the thing that wakes up Crystal, he does that thing with his finger, blah 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 blah. But the thing about Chorus is that he says he wants to unlock the true potential of Pokemon's power, even if it destroys the whole world, him included. And to help him achieve his goal, he joined Team Plasma, and was made their leader. So you know what that means?
We gotta fight him!
The first time you fight him, he has a Magnemite and a Clink. Now they've evolved, and they've brought some of their pals. Chorus's team now consists of Magneton, Metang, Behem, and a newly evolved Magnezone and Klinklang. Unless you have a fire or ground Pokemon, his team is a pretty good challenge. And like a lot of good characters, you can fight him again!
Yay!
The main differences are a new Washrotom with Will-O-Wisp, Hydro Pump, Discharge, Substitute, and a Life Orb. Metang evolved into Metagross and is now holding a Muscle Band. Behem is holding Leftovers. Magnezone now has Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam, and Wise Glasses. Klinklang now has Wild Charge and Giga Impact. And most of all his Pokemon are 22 levels higher, making it all the more challenging. And before I forget, Chorus's battle theme is one of my favourites in all gaming. So to end this segment, Chorus is awesome, and no one can disagree with that. You see what I did there?
Crash to Insanity was probably the last good Crash Bandicoot platformer there ever was, and they finished off the game with a bang when they introduced the final fight with the evil twins. These 2 birds were Cortex's first experiments, and now you need to stop them from taking over the world. No, Bison, no, don't!
Of course!
Oh, damn it. But now you're where they reside, ready to kick both of their asses and turn them into fried chicken. Each of the 3 phases of this fight requires you to use one of the 3 characters you've used in this game. You play as Nina Cortex in the first phase, and you must grapple onto platforms and destroy the outlets that supply the evil twins with power, all while avoiding enemies. The second phase requires you to use Cortex's ray gun to shoot the machine guns and laser cannon that the evil twins try to use against you. I'll be fairly honest here, this part is very repetitive. Just shoot and move on, shoot then move on. It's pretty easy. And now the final phase of this battle is a little different. Remember how the first fight of Crash to Insanity was against Cortex and Mecha Bandicoot? Well, because you've just played as Cortex, guess who you get to play as now?
Mecha Bandicoot!
I mean, holy shit, using a fucking mecha clone of yourself is just so cool. You need to evade the evil twins' shield and use your arm-mounted chainsaw to slice your opponent. And then the evil twins' robot explodes and both of the twins get eaten by fake Crash. Even the music that plays in the background is amazing. A cappella used in a music piece that sounds both epic and techno-like at the same time? Yeah, why the hell not? It's just a great battle. Epic Mickey. I need to talk about this game a lot more. Whenever I seem to talk about or reference. But that isn't the only great thing Epic Mickey has to offer. Well, the whole game was great, but the final battle of Epic Mickey, the Shadow Blot, is an epic concluding battle. In fact, there are 2 ways you can go about this fight. The Shadow Blot attacks you with balls of paint thinner, and it summons Blotlings to attack you. There are also walls which you can hide behind, but if Thinner hits them, then you have to use paint to restore them. At times he will attempt to inhale you, which you must respond by firing paint or paint thinner into its mouth. This does sound easy, but is it? Well, yeah, kinda is. But I'll be honest, this boss stays true to the formula of Epic Mickey. In this game, whichever way you choose to follow, it affects the outcome of what happens later in the story. This is put into play with a shadow blot, where if you use paint thinner to defeat it, it becomes destroyed. Whereas if you use paint, the shadow blot instead... Well, that was unexpected.
The Nega Wisp Armor boss battle from Sonic Colors is an amazing final boss battle. You want to know why? Because for the very first time, Dr. Robotnik is the final boss in a 3D Sonic game. Isn't that just amazing? But there are also other reasons as to why this boss is so awesome, and I'm going to explain those other reasons. For attacks, he'll use laser, spike, and cube. He'll occasionally mix two attacks together, like spiking cube and lasering. Basically, what you have to do in this fight is you have to homing attack him a couple times and then boost him in order to damage him. It's that simple. Repeat it a couple times and then the second phase will begin. In the second phase, you have to repeat the cycle one last time, and then after that, you have to monitor the wisps to create the unlimited color blaster to finish off Robotnik once and for all. I should also mention the music in this boss fight. The music in this boss fight is just plain epic. The first phase music is pretty dang good. However, the second phase music steals the show, as it is an orchestrated version of Reach for the Stars. And I just love this music. Overall, this boss plays great, has great music, and it's just a very satisfying boss fight.
Ninetales from Okami kills the Queen of Japan, blocks your Celestial Brush moves, and is easily one of the most memorable fights in the game. But it's not my favorite fight in Okami. That would easily go to the Twin Demons. These guys barely resemble anything close to that of demons. They're just two owls that represent time by the appearance of day and night. These two owls are given a formal appearance, but they're both violent in every way possible. But then again, there's Eternal Champion. I'm getting off topic. You start the fight by battling Niku, the owl that represents night. This phase is pretty easy, as all you need to do is avoid every attack they pull off, and Shiranui just does the rest of the work for you. When you fight both owls, however, your only help comes from Oki. The Twin Demons' attacks involve simply swooping down to attack Amaterasu, or even slowing down time. When they use their hats to spawn several objects, that is your time to use your Celestial Brush to attack. The type of brush stroke you need to use against them depends on which object they pulled out of their hats. This will stun the demon temporarily, and you must shoot Oki at one of them to bring them down to the ground, allowing you to get in there and attack. Unfortunately, there's one drawback for this and every other awesome fight in Okami. It's too easy. Every fight with Neo Cortex in the Crash Bandicoot series introduces something new. There's the first game's battle, which set the scene perfectly with the lab burning in the distance. Then there's the second game's battle, which wasn't too impressive. Now we have the elements of power fighting against you in Crash Bandicoot 4, and Twinsanity's fight involved a quick but epic conflict between Crash and Mecha Crash. But notice how I missed out on Crash 3's final fight. And that is because it is amazing! Cortex is more dangerous than before, riding a hoverboard armed with mines and a ray gun and whatnot. But not only are you battling Cortex, the masks of good and evil are fighting one-on-one as the fight goes on. You need to avoid the eye lasers, tornado form, and explosives, all while Cortex fires his ray gun and throws mine bombs. When there's a space available for attack, you must spin him, knocking him off his hoverboard and into the hole in the middle of the platform. There's so much going on, but it's so satisfying once you've defeated both Cortex and the Spirit of Evil itself. And with that having been done by a mutant Bandicoot, it's a pretty damn awesome fight. He's kidnapped your girlfriend. He hates you. You hate him. It's Dr. Fetus. This fight plays out like most of the other fights in Super Meat Boy. Seems like a level, but with the boss chasing you around. However, this stage has the trademark for the game, buzzsaws, and loads of them too. You basically have to time your jumps perfectly in order to avoid these saws, whilst also having to watch out for Dr. Fetus racing you to the end of this course. And he's also shooting at you. This fight will challenge your every skill at platforming and dodging. And finally, at the end, it's a whole jumping and dodging game, because Dr. Fetus is firing attacks at you, while you need to wait until the door is right open. But at that point, the scene is basically a homage to... you know what it is. I freaking love this fight. It plays out more like a level, but even then it puts you through a level you've already been through, except now Dr. Fetus is firing missiles at you and there's more hazards to look out for. You're in familiar territory, so despite its difficulty, this seems to be a rather fair fight, and that's the perfect setup for the finale to Super Meat Boy.
Warning, this segment contains spoilers for Ace Attorney Apollo Justice. If you don't want to be spoiled, then go play the game or just skip the segment. Jack should put an annotation for skipping the segment. If you're still here, enjoy.
So in my audition, I was going to talk about the final boss of Apollo Justice, Christoph Gavin. And now since I am in the countdown, I think I should do the devil's justice. So firstly, all starts with the last trial of Phoenix Wright, and in the opposing team, the rookie prosecutor Clavier Gavin, on the murder of the magician Magnifique Ramurai. And the defendant is his student Zach Ramurai. A trial bringing memories of the past games will occur, and in the end of the trial, the real boss fight will start. You as Phoenix Wright have to investigate, through time...
Far out, eh?
Yes, you heard me, to find the culprit by interrogating people from the present and the past, so you can find evidence of what actually happened and make everyone tell their biggest secrets. And apparently, if you have played it, you know all the evidence and proof point the finger to the same man. And for the finale, and the reason this boss battle is on the list, we have the final trial against the real culprit, Christoph Gavin. And, of course, to save the defendant from the fake guilty verdict and from death. Yes, she was manipulated from an early age to use nail polish that contained the same kind of poison that killed her father, and soon kill her, since in the trial before she was biting her nails. So, you know this is one trial that will be remembered. The trial starts with you accusing Christoph and putting him on the stand. The rest is you trying to make your accusations prove by using solid evidence that Phoenix found, making Clavier join forces with you, and, in the end, finding all the truth. But for the final statements, there are no evidence to prove that Christoph is guilty. And there is where the final trump card takes place. The jurist system, which makes the voice of the people the truth, or how they refer to it as common sense, which resorts to one of the most awesome breakdowns in the series. It's up there with a Von Karma headbang. Oh, also those people are only Thalasag Ramurai, and it has different endings, I guess, but who would choose guilty after seeing Gavin go apeshit?
Except you want to see the bad ending.
So even though a lot of people will not identify this as an actual boss battle, for what it is, it's an awesome Ace Attorney boss battle. So Jake, it's off to you right now because, you know, I have some business to take care of. Objection!
A recurring cliché in a video game is that a game has a villain that in the end is revealed to not be the final boss. Twilight Princess as Zant, Skyward Sword as Giraim, Forum Fantasy as Crazier, and the list goes on. But another game that uses this is Kirby's Return to Dreamland. And now you know where I'm going. It's the four-headed Spyro copy. It's Landia. I know I've already talked about this boss, but I digress. Landia is still an awesome boss. It looks a bit like a Pokemon. Why? Well, because it can use Whirlwind, Tail Whip, Tackle and Flamethrower. Once you reach half health, Landia will split into 4 little dragons, which makes it an easier target since the 4 Landias share the same health, which, by the way, doesn't make any sense. But still, they aren't harmless. They can play volley with a fireball with you in the middle, charge at you, spit fire and utilize electricity in many ways trying to shock you. And they can also reunite themselves for a while. Also, do you want to talk about the music? It's so overshadowed by the final boss theme. It makes you wonder why you're helping an unknown alien and if it's Landia the evil one. Now that I've ended talking, enjoy the rest of the music.
Oh come on, I thought Crash Bandicoot 4 was a good game. I actually loved the levels and bosses, and the switch between Crash and Coco during certain levels was, I'm going to say it, was a smart idea. Needless to say, like I said, the bosses were some of the most fun I had throughout the game, despite what many people say about them. Every boss before the finale was based off a mask that represented an element, like rock, fire, wind and water. The final boss, on the other hand, combines all 4 of these. The final fight with Crunch and Cortex, otherwise nicknamed as Crunch Time, has various phases, and with each one, it adds on a different attack, starting from falling meteorites, bouncing ice rocks, fire rising up from the floor, and even electric lasers. It's actually pretty challenging to survive, as each time more hazards are used in a different pattern. So to deal damage to both Crunch and Cortex, you need to bazooka down Crunch, and then he throws Cortex down in rage. Don't ask me why. And you basically need to spin into him to move on to the next phase of the battle. I'm gonna say it, this may actually be my favorite fight in the series. Most people dislike this installment, but I thought it was really good. I think this boss fight needs a lot more attention. All the boss fights in Ratchet & Clank 3 are just so cool. The fight with Courtney Gears would have immediately made it onto this list, but unluckily it ended way too quickly. But that isn't a problem because there's an even better fight. The final fight against Dr. Nefarious. This guy wants all natural life forces dead, and that includes you. Kinda sadistic, yes, but he's no Larxene, I tell you. Nefarious has an attack that creates a shadow-like entity, and also throws grenades at you, but you must counter-attack by using your weapons and of course, that trusty wrench of Ratchet's. Several times during the battle, Nefarious will fire a laser beam that you must move sideways to avoid, and then you must quickly attack him with either the Flux Rifle or the Annihilator, or any other cool weapon you gain during the game. It's Ratchet & Clank, so you aren't exactly short for choice here. But when Nefarious upgrades to the Beoblerator, well, how shall I put this? You get to fly a hover ship to destroy a massive mech suit! Every attack instantly becomes more and more challenging to avoid, and you must find an opening in Nefarious's attacks in order to deal damage to him. It's your basic boss formula, but when the fight is over, we are treated to one of the most entertaining defeat scenes ever.
Warning. Reactor detonation in 60 seconds.
Lawrence, engage the teleporter.
Would you care to specify a destination, sir?
Who cares? Just get us out of here.
Time's up.
What? That wasn't even close to 60 seconds!
Bye-bye.
This entry is a tie between two of my favorite and arguably the most epic final bosses in the Mario series. We have Bowser from Super Mario 64 and Bowser from Super Mario Galaxy. Bowser from Super Mario 64 is one of the most intense battles ever. It isn't like the last two battles where you just need to throw Bowser into a bomb. Nope. In the final battle, the music now changes to an organ-infested masterpiece, telling you that he isn't messing around now. Basically, this guy is kick-ass. You need to save the princess from his grasp, because who knows what he's planning to do with Peach. Actually, we don't really want to know. He breathes fire, charges towards you, and creates shockwaves, while you need to throw him into the bombs 3 times. But that's not all. Once you damage him twice, the arena falls apart into a star shape, meaning that throwing him into the bombs is now even more difficult. However, it's worth it at the end because you've finally foiled Bowser's plans once and for all. It's a truly triumphant and epic finale to one of the biggest steps for Mario's future games. And now, Bowser from Super Mario Galaxy. Similar to Mario 64, you fought your opponent 2 times prior. The final fight with Bowser in Super Mario Galaxy is a fight not only to save the princess or the Mushroom Kingdom, but the entire universe. The level before it builds up the tension by testing your every skill. I've explained that in a previous countdown. Go see that, by the way. And then when you battle Bowser, it's a shockingly fair fight, but unlike the final fight in Super Mario Galaxy 2, this battle actually requires you to figure out how to adapt to the several forms that Bowser becomes. Bowser uses the regular stomping and shockwave attacks, and you need to lure him to stomp on a capsule, uncovering lava. Then once his ass is on fire, you spin his tail, then spin him as he rolls around faster. Many times Bowser will launch both of you to a new planet, where the attacks become more sophisticated. Fireballs, more stomping, becoming a f***ing armadillo to bowl your ass over. On planets without lava capsules, you must either spin his head or fling green thingamabobs while he's charging at you. Even if you're a pro at the game, it's still a joy to battle Bowser for the final time in this game. It's not too obvious, but it's not too difficult either. And the satisfaction of launching him back into the sun and seeing the Mushroom Kingdom restore itself, it's just an amazing feeling. And never again will I experience such a wonderful ending from a Mario game as long as this one exists. Pokemon's final battles always consisted of the best trainer in existence. In Generation 2, you were able to face off against the Gen 1 Red's trainer with the same dialogue and such. It was really fun, but I found a much more favourable fight. And this fight is the Elite 4 and Lance, so I guess it's the Elite 5. But, you know, who cares? Every member of this team all has their own strengths and weaknesses, and all provide a challenge to combat with. You need to use your Pokemon's abilities to their advantages, and the phases against Lance, Will, Koga, Bruce, and Karen. The first challenger you face is Will, who is the newbie. He's a psychic trainer, so easily the best Pokemon types to put up against him are... What the hell am I saying? I'm not an expert, ha ha ha! But because he's a basic noob, it's pretty much the easiest part of the battle. Then once you've conquered Will, it's on to versing Koga, the poison trainer. His Pokemon mainly consist of poison types, and some are also the same ones from Generation 1. I hate poison. But after that phase, you fight Bruno, whose Pokemon contain fighting types. Because these Pokemon are based heavily on close range attacks, I'd say it's best to use flying or psychic type Pokemon against them. Especially with Pokemon such as Onix and Machamp, it becomes a major challenge to defeat them at such a high level. But you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Pokemon, so as I said, I don't have a lot of knowledge. Moving on, the fourth member of the Elite 5 is Karen, a trainer that fights with dark Pokemon. Then after you've defeated Karen, the real shit gets down. Lance just barges in as the champion trainer and just sends out all these dragon type Pokemon, all of which have leveled up to insane lengths. Level 50 Dragonites?
F that! I ain't gonna mess with no Terminator, shit!
You've already battled Lance, so you already have a fair idea of what's going to be used against you. So you would normally be prepared with ice and electric type Pokemon. The entire fight is really long, but it's worth it. And the satisfaction you gain after defeating all 5 trainers twice over just makes you feel like the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them was your real test, and to train them was your cause. You travelled across the land searching far and wide. These Pokemon, they would soon understand the power that's inside. Pokemon!
Just a heads up, major spoiler alerts. Yep, the Masked Man battle from Mother 3, and this is the final battle, I might add. Now, not only is this my all-time favorite battle in any video game, but this game, personally, is my most favorite game of all time. Now, this starts you off walking to some place that you don't even know where you're going to end up, but then you see the Masked Man right in front of the final needle. Gee, I wonder what he's doing there. He's just in front of the needle, and you have no clue what to be doing. He turns around and fires an intense bolt of lightning at all of you. It hits everybody except for Lucas, because he has the Franklin badge, which reflects all lightning attacks. And then, bam! The second fight with the Masked Man starts. Or as he is really known as, your brother Klaus. Because Lucas just absolutely refuses to fight his own brother, which you probably would too, all you can really do is just guard and heal yourself. As the battle progresses on, it will end up stopping, and you will hear someone, which you will find out later on to be Hinawa's voice, call out yours and Klaus's name. And then a later on point in the battle, Klaus does the most powerful move you can ever do in Mother 3. PK Love Omega. Right when it's about to hit Lucas, Flint jumps in the way, and all the damage goes to him. And then he does it again! Klaus, that is. Then Hinawa speaks to Klaus once again, and it's so powerful that it causes a flashback to whenever Lucas and Klaus are just babies. Really emotional stuff. And the theme that's playing after all this stuff occurs, it is just so saddening, but yet so amazing at the same time. See what I mean? And after Klaus slowly starts to regain his memory back, the time has come at last. Klaus then intentionally fires an intense bolt of lightning, which reflects right back at him, and then he dies. And the scene where Klaus gives his final breath, always. Seriously, if you are more vulnerable to emotion, you will cry at this game because of how amazing and tragic it is.
If you thought that the original fight with Gruntilda and Banjo-Kazooie was intense enough, then think the hell again. In Banjo-Tooie, Grunty controls the massive drilling machine she used to destroy your home place and the village, and uses an incredibly large range of attacks against you in this ultimate battle of— What am I saying? This battle is extremely difficult! Grunty and the Hag 1 use lasers, mortar cannons, the drill, minions, the exhaust pipe, magic spells, toxic gas, and fucking quiz questions. What other boss has quiz questions about the game? At first you only need to use Banjo and Kazooie in a third-person perspective, but then shit gets real and you need to turn Kazooie into a bayonet rifle and shoot the hell out of Grunty. There's even an event where you must sneak into the drill's engine and destroy the batteries inside to stop the Hag 1 from functioning. It's a really fast-paced fight, and you really need to quickly get in there and attack Grunty while she's still vulnerable to damage, especially when she starts introducing toxic gas. But once you shoot her down one last time, she drops an explosive spell into the engine, and it explodes in a massive blast of satisfaction. Cue fireworks and skull football.
What? How can this be? The Sisters of Fate have aided you. Unexpected.
The sisters are dead.
God of War 2 had an amazing final boss. Zeus, the king of the gods. Being the total prick he is, beating up Zeus feels so good. You battle in a large cliff with broken down Greek structures. He first goes into his god form, shocking you with lightning and smashing the terrain with his bare hands, while his sirens are also attacking you at the same time. You must break the sirens' backs by grappling them to send a massive sound wave to stun Zeus. Do this several times and chop up his hands, and he'll go back to his weaker form. The god form was alright and all, but the duel is where it's at. You duke it out with Zeus in a one-on-one duel on the ground, using mostly melee attacks, slashing away and dodging brutal punches and shockwaves, while using the Blade of Olympus to attack him. He occasionally grabs you and steals it from you, which you have to fight for it back, since the Blade of Olympus is the only thing that can kill a god. After spilling blood all over the terrain, he'll fall on the ground weak. You take a pillar and smash it straight in his face as hard as you can. Brutal. Name one other game where you slap a god with a pillar. After smashing him with more rocks and other stone objects, he goes back into his god mode, claiming you are an inferior worm and scum. He fries the entire terrain, and you realize you will probably get killed in a matter of seconds. You make a quick, clever move saying you give up, basically, and he can kill you. But you're actually tricking him into going into a weaker form to knock you out. This is what follows.
Release me from this torment of mine. I will release you from your life, my son, but your torment is just beginning.
But you realize that just as you were about to kill him, Athena comes in and tries to stop you, but you just kill her off like you don't care, even though she's helped you all this time. Zeus escapes and laughs like a prick, and this is where the third game starts off, ordering all the gods to get armed to fight a war against the mighty Kratos. I like the ending, showing that Kratos is one of the most ruthless but well-developed anti-heroes in video games. I think this is a truly amazing final boss and should be recognized even more than the Ares boss in the first God of War.
Lollipop Chainsaw was heavy on the awesome boss fights. Each one of them are zombified in one way or another, and they all represent a certain type of music genre. For example, Vic represented heavy metal, Mariska represented psychedelic. But with Josie the Funk Zombie, it's hard to call him a zombified being because he doesn't really look like a zombie or act like one to begin with. Josie rides a large spaceship-like vehicle, hosts a few commercials that apparently are downright offensive to the target audience, and uses so much autotune that it would even put T-Pain to shame. The fight with Josie takes place in a colourful fun center that pays homages to classic Atari games like Pong and Pac-Man. However, the actual fight requires you to dodge Josie's rainbow dash lasers that instantly make the battle 20% cooler than usual. Then blast or cut away at him using your chainsaw. More pixelated bombs will come out of Josie's regular attack range, and several staircases will rise up from the ground, giving you a pedestal to fire from. But this is only half the fight, because once Josie has lost most of his health, he will transform the area into a giant spaceship. Because he's cowering behind a shield now, you need to destroy several outlets while avoiding the electrical attacks that Josie tries to damage you with. And the scene afterwards with you using your chainsaw is just pure eye candy.
Looks like you're out of coins, weird voice guy.
May you speed to reggae Protosario.
Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island had several bosses that couldn't compare to other bosses with its creativity. Bouncing Raven Mother, but nothing and nothing could ever top the amazing final with Baby Are you serious? This fight was so underwhelming compared to the other bosses in the game. Even pushing a pot plant off the edge of the shelf was more difficult than this, so maybe this wasn't too great after all. Maybe it's just... Oh wow. Oh lord. Oh! It's a major perspective changer, since you need to launch eggs into the screen instead of across it, while Baby Bowser slowly charges right on. No, get back! And while that's happening, the platforms you're standing on crumble away ever so frantically, with the epic rock music playing in the background. Baby Bowser, in other Mario games, is more of a pest and an absolute pain, but in this game, we don't hate him, we fear him. EG is a fantastic indie game, and especially for one that was made only using Game Maker. Possibly the strongest part of the game were the bosses. Part of the satisfaction came from finding out how to damage them. The same can be said for the final boss of the game, General Tor. General Tor has been the one that led the attack towards Earth and invaded the planet, killed the majority of all humans, and now you're the only one left, encountering him in one final duel. The fight with General Tor is packed to the brim with loads of hyped up attacks. You've got waves of rockets, waves of blue energy, rockets that split into multiple missiles, a beam that sweeps the ground, and a very powerful sphere of energy that combines the orbs around him and is fired towards you. He even has a one-hit kill where he stomps the ground and traps you with his laser. So how do you damage Tor? Well, he has 6 health bars, so you have to damage him sparingly of ammo. At first I used the Shock Splinter because that weapon had the more powerful bullets, but then I ran out of ammo. So I kept attacking General Tor with my usual weapons, but they were too bloody weak. Then I realized that you actually have to damage him with your Resonance Reflector. You're supposed to wait until he fires his large orb, then reflect it back at him. I had no clue about this, so I just wasted 10 minutes of my life. It came as a large slap of realization. And can I please say something about the music? This is probably one of the best boss themes in video game history. So underrated. Unless you watch Media Master, of course. But when you defeat General Tor, if you didn't save Dan earlier in the game, General Tor would cancel the Earth invasion and leave the planet with you on it, only for EG to be the last human left standing. There's literally no other human that resides on Earth as a result. And when I got this ending, it was one of the most shocking moments I've ever encountered in a video game. When did this game get so serious? One does not simply say Xemnas is an easygoing villain. He literally is the master of nothing. He achieves nothing, has control over nothing, and might actually be one of the most ridiculously useless characters of all time. But his battle is so cool! In Kingdom Hearts 2, you fight Xemnas so many times in so many ways, it's like a million boss fights instead of one. You get to slice buildings in half, shoot down a dragon in a ship, fall from a massive height while avoiding attacks, slash Xemnas in mid-air, get involved in a huge storm of lasers, and see your opponent himself disintegrate. This battle is one of the longest I've ever faced, but it has so much going on, so much variety, so much color, so much wind, and contains the debut of the most famous moment possibly in the series. It easily becomes one of the longest and coolest fights of all time. So much for being a game about keys. One of the key highlights of Mad World were the boss battles. The majority of them was so violent, so intense, that it was so much fun cutting up your enemies with an arm-mounted chainsaw. And even though I like the fights with Jude the Dude and the Black Baron, nothing ever came close to my experience with Von Twirlenkiller. Von Twirlenkiller is a creative concept. It's a sadistic German official that has wind turbines for arms. These wind turbines can create huge tornadoes that rip through the arena, blow you back, and even lift you up above the ground. This is literally the third fight of the game. But you can't deny that it's so much fun to see Jack Kamen slice off Twirlenkiller's arm with his chainsaw.
We're Sonic Heroes.
I thought Sonic Heroes was a good game, people. It may not be the best Sonic game made, but it's far from the worst. It gives you 4 teams to use in the story, and every one of these teams are enjoyable to use. Well, almost all of them. And nothing says teamwork better than the final boss, Metal Madness. Metal Sonic transforms into a huge metal monster, and you must use all 4 teams to fight it. The first team you use is Team Rose, and it's my least favorite phase of the battle. But at least it's ridiculously easy. There's a light on Metal Madness, which is basically the weak point you need to aim for. After gaining the Team Blast, you must use Sir Pointless, Big the Cat, to attack forward and damage the lighted spot. The next team you move on to is Team Chaotix, and the powers you use against Metal Madness can prove to cause no damage to him if you don't see what color the light is. Madness will fight many missiles in order to trap your teammates, and you must use Vector or Charmy to attack the light once again. Now you move on to using Team Dark, and Metal Madness gains the ability to breathe fire. The same way of finishing this phase is simple, just hit the light with either Shadow or Omega, and you move on to using Team Sonic. And it is awesome! The final phase of this battle involves flying to attack the remains of Metal Madness, with the epic Crush 40 music playing in the background. Rings are very scarce at this point of the battle, so you need to be extra careful. Because of the wider range of attacks that Metal Madness now has at its disposal, you need to adapt your strategy to whatever he decides to do. You might need to use Sonic's homing attack to combat his crystal attack. You might need to use Tails' thunder attack to combat the missiles, and you might need to use Knuckles' forward attack when Metal Madness flies down whilst holding something in his hand. This is a fight where you need to move quickly, but it also tests your skills at using each team, and supporting the idea of teamwork, playing to people's strengths and covering their weaknesses.
Hello again. Pit.
Hades.
Pit.
Hades.
Pit.
Hades.
Pit.
Hades.
The final battle with Hades in Kid Icarus Uprising is incredibly fast-paced, comedic, and absolutely badass. Not only are you fighting the world's cockiest ruler of the underworld in a mech suit, but there is a lot of firepower. Loads and loads of firepower. There are tons of homing attacks and tornadoes to avoid, all while you need to constantly shoot Hades' weak points to upgrade your mech suit. Then you need to fly away from the insane amount of lasers and missiles, finally grab a beam sword and slice up Hades' body. Then, as if this battle wasn't awesome enough, you summon Medusa to punch Hades' head off his shoulders. When a Nintendo franchise manages to top even the most mythological games like God of War, you know that there's something more epic. But then again, there's another God of War boss later down the line. Legion from the Castlevania series is a giant ball of dead corpses. As disturbing as that thought is, does that detract from how fun this thing is to fight? As you continue to slash away at Legion, the corpses fall off and begin to attack you, adding more of a challenge. Sure, the idea and grotesque appearance is really unsettling and makes me squirm, but damn me to the depths of 4chan if I don't enjoy the battle. As much of an epic fight that Alex Twilight hosted in No More Heroes 2, it just doesn't compare to the fight with Margaret Moonlight. But then again, it's my opinion, and who doesn't like to hear some other opinions every once in a while? As described from a battle theme called Philistine, Margaret is a gothic reaper that is here to teach Travis that his actions have made him anything less than a hero. The dark moonlight setting, the fast-paced and riveting music, and the fight itself is just fitting. Margaret is armed with 2 scythes, which she can use for normal short-range combat, but then these scythes are also disguised as machine guns and sniper rifles. Once an opening is ready, you can go up to it and slash away, while avoiding the explosive obstacles. Not to mention that Margaret herself is voiced by Tara Strong. Just a fun fact for you guys. The fight is made even more awesome with the scene straight afterwards. Travis stabs Margaret, and her final words are as follows.
Riveting melody, isn't it?
Catchy as hell.
Did you memorize the song?
100%.
That is so sublime.
Cave Story had 3 final bosses, each one depending on your tasks handed out in the game. And nobody wants to have the Doctor as their final boss, so it really is obvious that it comes down to either the Undead Core or Balos. I really don't know which one to choose here, because both of these fights are tests of skill and control, while contributing to the story equally. So I chose both of them. First of the Undead Core has been possessed by the Doctor Spirit in a final attempt to kill you, and everyone else on the island after his previous plan failed. And to cause us to hate the Doctor even more, he also brainwashes Sue and Misery, 2 characters you met in the game. The Undead Core, Sue, and Misery all attack you at the same time. The core is able to produce explosions that run along the ceiling and floors, mouth lasers, and produce mini cores that you can use as platforms. Misery is able to summon enemies to attack you, and Sue constantly somersaults towards you in the air for many things that you constantly have to dodge. All while attacking all 3 targets at the same time. When defeating Misery and Sue, it becomes a bit of an Ornstein and Smo type scenario. Defeating Sue first means that Misery will be able to spawn homing missiles at you. Defeating Misery first means that Sue will become more hard-hitting when twirling at you. But despite the amount of stuff that happens, it's quite shocking to admit that the fight is very fair, unlike the fight with the Doctor from before. And here's Balos. Balos is made even more difficult from the level leading up to it, and the dialogue spoken in the Sacred Grounds explain of how Misery and Balos connect to the story. And once you've reached Balos himself, you've realized every part of the story has just fallen into place, and because you've figured out the entire plot, you couldn't be any more ready to face Balos. You have to fight him with Curly. That just proves how fucking hard it is. Balos starts off by charging around the arena like the madman the game describes him as, creating shockwaves made of bones? Bones. Because Balos is so fast, it's likely you'll be caught off guard by his unpredictable attack pattern, along with lightning! But this is only the easiest part of the fight, and that's saying something. Balos' second phase results in him transforming into a giant head that pounds the ground, creating more bone shockwaves and spawning millions of bats that fly in the sky. But easily, the most difficult of all phases is the final form that Balos takes. Balos spawns more bats and 8 eyes that spin around him, all whilst dropping skull bombs from up above. All 8 eyes must be disabled before Balos moves into the center of the arena, creates several platforms, while spikes rise up from the ground. It is then that you must fight thousands of flying angel enemies while attacking the eyes, while also attacking Balos himself. As you begin to deal more and more damage to Balos, his head starts to leak blood, to the point where it becomes downright disturbing. You know, for a guy that wants to be killed, he poses a massive challenge, and there's nothing more satisfying then finally defeating Balos, all while the island is slowly plummeting to its doom. Both the Undead Core and Balos are equally amazing fights, and no matter which path you take in the game, there's a 99.9% guarantee of a challenge here. But they're actually quite fair. And at least these two fights are 1,000,000 times better than the Doctor, you scum-sucking sacker. This is the end. No, okay, I was just kidding. It isn't the end of this list, but that's the name of this boss. The End. The End is a member of the Cobra unit and is a badass sniper grandpa that is willing to spend his last days in battle. This entire fight takes place in a vast jungle, which he knows more about than you do, so you need to use whatever you have to defeat him. There isn't even any music playing. There's just silence and the sounds of the natural environment around you. It truly is an ambient battle. If you spend too much time standing still, or if he finds you sneaking up on him, he'll shoot you and run away to watch you again. There are many ways to defeat the End. You can use a microphone to hear his breathing. You can find him while he hunts for food. You can simply find him in the bushes. You can even discover your own way of defeating the End. But there's a defeat method that really takes this fight's creativity to the max. You can turn off the game and leave it for about a week, then come back to it again and find it that the End has died of old age. And that's quite odd. When have you ever fought a boss that dies of old age? And why would you ever want to miss out on such an amazing fight anyways? Even if you stay out of the conflict, you're disappointing the End by not giving him the thrill of fighting one last time. This fight is so unique, it might even be the best boss in gaming history. There's so much to experience from it, and so much to find out from it, that it's the ultimate test of using what you have at the time to your advantage. But here's the kicker. Even if it may be the best boss fight ever, it isn't my favorite. Heck, I like other bosses much better. There's no way you couldn't ever enjoy how much variety it contains. Think of it as the Bear Grylls of Metal Gear Solid, using what you have for survival. Imagine having explained the idea of Bayonetta to the rest of your development team. You would have been thought to be bloody mental. So I was thinking, like, the game could be about a witch whose clothes are made from, like, her hair, and then when she attacks, she strips off her clothes, and her hair, they turn into giant hair demons. Like, sound good. Does it sound good?
Yep, we'll work on that right away.
Ah well, nothing ever helped drive that concept home more than the final boss of Bayonetta, Jubileus. Jubileus is essentially the creator of everything, and you are forced to avoid its punches while shattering the mask-like faces that Jubileus creates, while traversing lava platforms and avoiding so many far-fetched obstacles, like a black hole and, well, even fucking galaxies. Yeah, galaxies! They're being thrown towards you! Seems legit. Then you actually get to transform Bayonetta's hair into a hair monster that culminates in, well, see for yourself. Okay, let's just take that back a little, please. So Bayonetta just spawned a massive hair demon, Falcon punched Jubileus so hard that it orbited the entire solar system and burnt to the ground in the sun. Yeah, that happened. And then the credits roll and you are very sad. Wait, no, it's not over yet. Okay, oh sorry, no. You have to destroy every part of Jubileus before it crashes into Earth. Then, finally you can relax down to see 3 minutes of Bayonetta dancing. Congratulations. This is Ridley. Now this is Meta Ridley. And
this is Sparta!
Apart from the fact that you're quite literally fighting a robot dragon, this fight is one of the most epic duels you will ever partake in. Meta Ridley has the ability to fly around the arena while he bombards you with lasers and explosives. Meanwhile, you only have your quick moving skills and an arm cannon to combat his more ranged and faster decisions. He even sometimes shields himself, while you need to avoid his missiles that can easily devastate you if too many of them hit you. And once Ridley does move on to ground, however, it is now a case of both aiming for his chest while also dodging his melee attacks, which include charging at you and swiping at you with his tail. Even though he's lost the use of his wings, the fight is actually now much more difficult, because, you know, being hit by him deals much more damage. It just goes to show that Ridley isn't mucking around at this point. A merciless matchup between the revenge-seeking bounty hunter and the metal-infused dragon. From a show like SpongeBob SquarePants with some of the most hilarious writing and episodes, this franchise managed to spawn one of the most epic yet underrated fights in video game history. Because the SpongeBot is essentially a clone of SpongeBob that Plankton created, this robot is pretty much a larger and beefed up version of SpongeBob himself. He uses karate chops to flip the platforms, while you need to blow bubbles into the lights on the bot's body. For such a lighthearted and hilarious TV show, the video game version of the series manages to take the concept of boss fights very damn seriously, when the fish head isn't constantly nagging you.
Oh, the humanity! Or should I say the fishanity? Shut up!
Once you're inside the SpongeBot's head, you need to jump over platforms and destroy fuses with bubbles. Then, when Robot Plankton comes over, you need to shoot him as well. And that music though! The soundtrack for this boss has that Metal Gear sort of feel to it. And holy crap, remember that this is coming from a SpongeBob game. It's such an underrated fight that it's sad to see it go unnoticed amongst other gamers. And it proves that something as silly as SpongeBob SquarePants can be absolutely amazing, with both gameplay and imagination. Shadow of the Colossus is a game with many meanings. The story has been interpreted with each theory making more sense than the next, and part of the story is bringing down Colossi to their death. And so many people would expect me to choose either Malus, the final boss, or Dirge for this list, or maybe the first Colossus, Valus. But most people should know which one I've chosen. Phalanx. Phalanx is the largest boss in the entire game, and despite this, it's actually quite a harmless creature. The music that plays during this fight is insanely epic, and it embodies the doubtful determination you would most likely be feeling at this point in the game. As it flies around the sky, Phalanx is constantly minding its own business as you follow it on horseback. Then, releasing an arrow to pierce his underbelly causes it to descend closer to the ground. Then, as you continue to pursue Phalanx on horseback, you can jump off and climb it as it begins to soar back up into the air. You just can't lightly hold on, you have to
firmly grasp it!
Then as you proceed to traverse its back, hoping not to fall off Phalanx's back at such a colossal height, clenching the controller with all intensity levels raging at inhumane speeds, you finally make it to the weak spot on its back and stab your sword straight through. While you enjoy this epic battle like no other, you kind of feel a little bit guilty. Phalanx did pretty much nothing to counterattack your moves except for flying. So being able to bring this colossal beast down feels satisfying, yet non-satisfying. Was all that violent action in that battle worth it? Yes? The following segment is dedicated to the minds behind Aperture Science. As if the first battle with GLaDOS wasn't already fun enough, the fight with Wheatley in Portal 2 takes it all and makes it a cagazillion times better. Instead of blindly messing around, Wheatley's created a 4-part plan to do everything that GLaDOS didn't do right last time. In the original GLaDOS fight, you detached cores from her and incinerated them to pull her apart. However, during this battle, you do the opposite. You attach cores onto Wheatley in order to make him less intelligent. The portal gun is put into full use here, as bombs are thrown at you with shields put up to block any other attacks. So you need to strategically place the portals in order to evade his defense shields in order to expose his structure. Once you've done that, you must use your portal gun to get to high ledges and find cores, simultaneously as those ledges begin to crumble. Each core has incredibly hysterical dialogue, and I'm not just talking about the infamous space core that is somewhat obsessed with. As Wheatley's intelligence decreases, his dialogue becomes so damn funny, especially once he finds out that the building is still rapidly fall apart, and you're still, well, still alive.
This was a triumph.
What? Are you still alive?
Wheatley and Shell are sucked down into outer space, almost being trapped. However, soon enough it's GLaDOS to the rescue. Well, only for you.
I can pull myself in! I can still fix this!
I already fixed it. And you are not coming back.
Oh no! Change your plans! Hold on to me! Tighter! Ah! Grab me, grab me, grab me, grab me!
At this point, GLaDOS has developed feelings for you. Sympathetic feelings that she otherwise wouldn't have even thought of feeling. But she begs that you leave the Aperture Science Labs forever and she will delete all memories of you existing. Then, you are lifted up throughout the laboratories, and for some reason, this whole ending is actually quite emotional. The beautiful operatic music being sung by turrets in the background, accompanied by you viewing your last seconds in what has been an adventure for you throughout the Portal games, becomes a rather sad ending, even for the series standards with dark, malicious humor and sophisticated challenges. In the end, GLaDOS ultimately gives you what she promised you most. Sure, there are theories floating around whether Shell actually died and this freedom is heaven, but as a mysterious, humorous and, well, depressing conclusion into what is essentially one of the greatest franchises ever. The dramatic build-up to Wheatley's fight, the actual fight itself, the hilarious dialogue, and the on-edge save by GLaDOS and her last words ever spoken to you in-game, following by her fulfilling her long-lasting promise. I really can't say that this isn't a perfect ending. Magolor is such a troll. From the beginning of Kirby's Return to Dreamland, you've been constructing this ship. By the end of the game, Magolor reveals himself as a villain, steals the ship from you, and uses it against you in the final level. This is a dick move, but it's well reasoned because you use Landia to fight back. A dragon. We're not even up to the real fight and it's already epic as hell. Keeping in mind that this is from a Kirby game, seeing a massive amount of attacks at Magolor's disposal, it's just, well, damn. You even get to use super abilities to damage Magolor, and remember how cool those were? Once you've managed to bring Magolor down to his lowest amount of health possible, Kirby attempts to use his
Mega Sword of Doom and Destruction
to slice his opponent in two, but Magolor blocks it, and you must deflect it back against him to win the fight. But there's one more trick stored up Magolor's sleeve, or in this case, the crown. Magolor's soul gets the better of him and completely enrages Magolor in one duel between himself and Kirby. What's the result? Magolor literally spamming the screen with his new and insane attack pattern. He fills up the screen with lasers, steals your copy abilities and uses them against you, and flips the screen upside down to put you off. It's one incredibly insane and challenging battle, but at no point is it ever boring, with the amount of things to look out for on screen. At the end of this battle, your efforts result in Magolor's soul dissolving into dust. Death. God of War has some of the largest and most epic bosses of all time. Anyone could admit that having a Hydra as the first boss of the series was awesome. Anyone could admit that a one-on-one duel with Zeus is awesome. And with the first two games in the God of War main trilogy mentioned on this list, that leaves us with the third game in the series. Which fight would I pick as my favorite? How about the first boss, Poseidon, the king of the ocean, the boss where you punch him straight out of his own water form and poke him in the eyes with your thumbs? Or maybe Zeus, the final boss, where you punch him in the face so many times that the screen fills up with blood? Or maybe Hermes, actually no, fuck Hermes. But for my personal taste in bosses, nothing in the series has ever been as close as the fight with Kronos. Kronos has stolen some sort of a ring, and since he's eaten it, it's your job to get it back. Should be a pushover, right?
The murderer of Gaia enters my tomb. Kronos!
Can you get like an aspirin or something? The entire fight with Kronos is basically a massive level / boss, with his large filthy hands trying to grab you and throw you into the air, or fending off large amounts of skeletons. while also inflicting damage onto Kronos himself. It's so satisfying to stab open a massive boil and hear that wonderful scream of pain. Fighting and climbing Kronos is such a spectacle, as you are literally 50 million times smaller than him, and that might just be an understatement. As this giant beast tries to stop you from getting any further up this boss or level or monstrosity or fucking universe, you eventually manage to reach Kronos' head. You must jump into his mouth, and then a disturbing but sadistically beautiful moment occurs. To retrieve that ring that Kratos needs, you must be digested by Kronos and slice open his intestines from the inside of his body. It's brutal surgery for a giant, and yet even though Kronos has given up, Kratos still isn't satisfied. You must climb back up onto his head and stab him so hard he begins to stagger across the huge landscape, and then he falls to his death. Think of Shadow of the Colossus, where most of the bosses are so satisfying to kill, yet you feel guilty for enjoying it. Well, that's evident throughout every second of you seeing this colossal beast die. How can we sum this up in 4 words? Truly epic. Damn, son. Every final boss in the Metal Gear Solid series has always served well, all except one at least, but I'm sure we all loved the fights with Liquid Snake and the boss in both Metal Gear Solid 1 and 3. But let's not forget Metal Gear Solid 4. In a final settlement between the rivalry that has been continued throughout the series, it's Solid Snake vs Liquid Ocelot. On the Outer Haven, a one-on-one duel between two men equal in both strength and ability. During the first phase of this battle, the original duel music from the first game plays, and even the health bars revert back to the original. There are no weapons used at all during this fight. It's a hands-on finale, using everything from kick-punch combos to avoiding Ocelot's own. As the battle moves on, the health bars, attacking techniques and music change through the phases of previous games in the series, bringing back nostalgic memories. And it all happens right here. While you're punching away at Ocelot and vice versa, the music changes from the first duel theme from the original MJS, to the tanker incident from the second game, to Snake Eater from the third game, to Old Snake from this game. This fight is one gruel but satisfying and overall epic finale to Solid Snake's journey. You've just finished off your long-term rivalry, and soon enough you're ready to settle in and watch the ending to this game. It's too long to explain here, but it's damn worth it. Metal Gear Solid 4. Essentially what is my favorite game of all time, provides my third favorite boss ever. King K. Rool. I'm not joking, this final boss tops every other boss given to us in Donkey Kong 64. And even then, the build up to King K. Rool's last stand is one intense boxing match. You face K. Rool with all 5 Kongs and they all share the same health, so if one dies, you need to start all over again. The first phase with Donkey Kong is the starting phase and it's fairly easy. You just need to avoid his punches and then blast yourself at him when he gets distracted. Once you've done that 4 times, you switch to Diddy Kong, where K. Rool now uses his boxing glove as a fully functional bangarang. You need to use a jetpack to avoid this and shoot down the larger lights above him. This is actually quite tricky, as the King's boxing glove can reach you very easily and being hit means you lose your jetpack. Once that's over, you move on to the third phase, where you use Lanky Kong. K. Rool now has his head stuck in the lights, or we could call them headlights. Ha ha ha! He can only attack blindly by running around the arena. By using Lanky's elastic arms, you punch in different numbers placed outside the ring, and then a barrel appears with 4 musical pads. Inside this barrel is a banana peel, and the challenge is now evident, because you now have to lure K. Rool to slip on the banana peel. He'll charge at you and slip. The 4th phase involves Tiny Kong, and she has to avoid the shockwaves, and then you must transform Tiny into, well, a Tiny Kong, and into your rival's shoe. This phase is really a matter of shooting and avoiding, and in the end, this distracts K. Rool to the point where you are now at the final phase of this fight. Chunky Kong is called in, and now K. Rool is pissed. He bounces off the ropes at the sides of the arena and even turns invisible. At this point, you can only use his shadows to see where he's heading. Basically, in the game, if Chunky turns invisible, then everything else that is invisible becomes visible. That's what you want to do here. You need to make K. Rool appear visible, then you jump into the barrel in order to make yourself huge. This is the shining moment of the battle. You get to Primate Punch K. Rool just before he charges at you, giving you the opportunity to completely beat him up into a pulp. This happens several times, and each time K. Rool will charge at Chunky invisible, all while zigzagging to put you off. But at the end it's worth it, because the final slap to King K. Rool's face results in him getting launched straight out of the damn building. Not only is it a fun and satisfying finale, but combine that with the hilarious comedy that goes on between each phase and you've got yourself one memorable fight. It's challenging, it has multiple phases for each playable character, it's hilarious, it has variety. This might have been my #1 spot if there wasn't one other boss fight to take the title. Sorry K. Rool, you've just been KO'd. The inbred loafer from Prickly Pete's Sexy Truck. This is one of the greatest bosses of all time because the game builds up to it so well. It's a piece of bread! Isn't that awesome? No, it isn't. Let's be serious this time. Long-term fans would have expected this to be #1. After all, I've talked about this fight so many times that it's in my zone to explain everything about Majora's Mask! Alright, I've explained this boss fight a lot of times in my videos, but Majora's Mask is such an amazing Zelda fight, so much so that it had to be my favorite boss fight ever. Which Zelda game is it from? I really hoped you could work that out. Majora's Mask is a mask that was carved out of cursed wood, but this curse was too chaotic that the ancients had to seal it away. But then thanks to both the Happy Mask Salesman and the Skull Kid, Majora is freed and causes the moon to slowly descend upon the Earth's surface. This mask has an unusual amount of symbolism contributing to the level before it and the story of the Skull Kid. But that's some complicated shit to explain, so I'll talk about it another time. From the outside, the moon looks horrifying, and when you're actually on it, it's disturbingly empty and calm. Then you get through some trial levels and then it appears in the arena. Majora's 3 different forms go from a regular mask to an androgynous humanoid with moonwalking skills, to even a monstrosity with Drake Merwin's whip-like tentacles and pulsating body. What makes this battle more interesting is that there are masks representing the bosses you fought previously, and they also try to attack you. And in terms of mechanics, this is just so much fun. You get to choose whatever weapons or mask you want to fight with. It's completely up to you how you want to defeat it. You can use ranged attacks and shoot it down with arrows, or do a run up and slash it away with your blades, or cheat a little bit and use the Fierce Deity's mask. And even if that makes the battle like 100% easier, nothing feels more satisfying than stomping down on Majora like you were a thwomp crushing Mario. You've known that this cursed mask was the reason for all this trouble, so no doubt is it important that you prevail in your journey. The final fight of Majora's Mask was obviously going to be Majora's Mask, but this is only to prevent the world from being destroyed by the moon, and now both its symbolism and disturbance have made Majora a much loved villain in the Zelda universe, not to mention my favorite character in gaming. These last 50 bosses are my favorite bosses in video games because of several reasons, but most of all because they are fun. Just as much fun as I have playing video games in the first place. And this basically started the idea for top 50 favorite bosses, my final countdown for 2013. Okay, I know, this final part is like 3 months late and it's 2014 now, but who cares? I am Master Jake Studios and Majora's Mask is the best boss that I've ever faced.
My oh so sweet Ricky was my oh so sweet Ricky was when Ricky was away, I was in dismay because Ricky, my oh so sweet Ricky, was gone. My piano playing, video making, deep voice exasperating, Zelda fan making, pie eating, rap listening, Ricky. When Ricky was away, I was in dismay because Ricky, my oh so sweet Ricky, was gone. My piano playing, video making, deep voice exasperating, Zelda fan making, pie eating, rap listening, Ricky. My oh so sweet Ricky was my oh so sweet Ricky was when Ricky was away, I was in dismay because Ricky, my oh so sweet Ricky, was gone. My piano playing, video making, deep voice exasperating, Zelda fan making, pie eating, rap listening, Ricky. When Ricky was away, I was in dismay because the Ricky, my oh so sweet Ricky, was gone. My piano playing, video making, deep voice exasperating, Zelda fan making, pie eating, rap listening, Ricky. My oh so sweet Ricky.